The following is a presentation of the Belly Up Sports Media Network.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back into SEC Talk, and it is Champ Week. The regular season has come and gone with Rivalry Week, and what a rivalry week it was. You know, not only in the SEC, but also outside of the conference. We had a little bit of upsets. We had, obviously, the game between Michigan and Ohio State. That was a crazy game. We had the Iron Bowl, which was also a crazy ending. And then we also had an upset in the SEC. Kentucky taking down Louisville, a team that we didn't have any chance of thinking that Kentucky could do it, but the Cats ended up pulling out a great week in victory against Louisville. So we'll get into all recaps, and then in the preview, we'll get to not only the SEC championship preview of Georgia and Alabama, but we're not just going to talk about one game, but we're also going to talk about get outside the conference we haven't done this season and talk about all the other championship previews. So with all that, Wade, how was your Thanksgiving?
Pretty good. A lot of good food, good football, like you mentioned.
Yep.
Just can't believe that Iron Bowl finish still. I know that we almost had the biggest upset of the season probably with the Auburn Tigers nearly upsetting the Alabama Crimson Tide. But alas, Alabama, you know how it is. They get super lucky at all times and extended their championship dreams for another week. And then, of course, we had my home state, the Palmetto Bowl. It was kind of a slugfest, if you will. Not a lot of offense, some really good defense, but always a close one. And then up in Ann Arbor, that was another really, really good top 5 showdown between the Buckeyes and the Wolverines.
Yeah, we won't get into much of the Michigan and Ohio State talk, but I'm sure that we'll get into that on the Sports Scramble show that will be airing on tomorrow night. So definitely tune into that. If you just want to get into all the sports action, the NFL, college football, that's what we've really been mainly talking about on that show. But let's get right into our show here on SEC Talk. As we always do, not many really more check-ins in the AP Top 25 poll. This is going to be our last one, as on next week's show, we will be looking at the playoff of who got in, the 4 teams who got in. We'll see how many SEC teams get in there. Will it be just Georgia, or will it be Georgia and Alabama? But nonetheless, as you can see here, Tennessee has dropped out of the AP Top 25 poll. I don't think that's going to be the case in the college football playoff poll that goes on Tuesday. They're number 21. They beat Vanderbilt pretty handily. But in the AP poll, you had, an undefeated Liberty get into the mix, and then you have an undefeated, a one-loss James Madison still in the mix too in that poll. But number 1, Georgia, I expect this to be the same. Georgia, they struggled a little bit against Georgia Tech, but so did pretty much everybody else in the top 10. Number 8, Alabama, like you mentioned, they got out of Jordan Hare pretty handily there. It came down on that 4th and 31. So number 8, Alabama. They have that obviously big test in Atlanta. Georgia and Alabama. We'll get into that in brief discussion later on the show. Number 3, Missouri finishes the season at 10-2. My pick for SEC Coach of the Year is Eli Drinkwitz. Whenever we have our award show here in a couple of weeks, I'm sure that Drinkwitz will be one of those candidates. And then number 11, Ole Miss. They also finished the season at 10-2 with a 17-7 victory over Mississippi State, sending their rivals to 5-7. We'll see Mississippi State. There's could be some discussions of even them being 5-7. They could make it to a bowl game of the categories that I don't know how it goes into. But Mississippi State, I heard that they could definitely be in that discussion. And then LSU, they finish off the regular season 9-3. The Tigers move up a spot to number 13. So 5 SEC teams pretty much in the final AP Top 25 poll that we'll be seeing here in the college football landscape. Moving on now, let's get to our reminder segment, as we always do here on the show. If you have any questions pertaining to SEC football, and we'll open up to everybody else because we're also talking about other conference championships that's going to be happening. So if you're a fan of the MAC, definitely time into that. So if you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment, and we will get to that throughout the show. All right, let's get into one of our first main segments that we always do here on the show. It's been a tradition for quite some time, and that is SEC Fantasy, presented by our friends over at Milo Bros Golf. And I'll tell you, I don't know if this is golfing weather. It's been either in the 50s and 60s down here. It's going to get even colder. It's messing up my sinuses lately. But nonetheless, if you are, you got Cyber Monday tomorrow. You had Black Friday sales going on the whole entire week. So definitely take advantage of that. But if you want to upgrade your golf attire, head on over to MilerBros.com and you can get 15% off with code BellyUpSports. Okay, this is the last time that you'll see these rules as our when we do our bowl preview. This will be doubled. So as always here, one quarterback, a running back, a receiver, and a defense. And you cannot use the player you picked from last week. Usually I tell Wade the scores, but since we didn't do SEC Fantasy Draft, I didn't have to. So this is the first time that you're going to get a look of how your team did.
Yes, my live reaction here. And just as Tyler said, we won't have a draft this week. We're going to wait to see what those bowl matchups look like. But let's see how we finish the regular season off. Carson Beck, it wasn't his best game by any stretch. He had 199 total yards. At one point I checked in and he had cleared over 200, but I think that he had some sack yardage late. I know he threw a late interception, so he didn't really finish that game that strong. Neither did Georgia, but they got the victory. They're still number one, and he's still going to be in that award show that we're mentioning. He'll be a top 3 quarterback in the conference, but only a $199 this week. And then Jalen Wright, he had a respectable game, 84 yards. Vanderbilt hung around in this one a little bit and gave Tennessee a challenge. So they did have to throw the ball a little bit more than I thought. But 84 yards is still good. Malik Neighbors, I mean, this guy's the best in the country. We've been saying one of the best, but I think we just call him the best. And very consistent. 122 yards seems to be kind of his norm. So he did set the record for LSU's all-time receptions, and he's only, I think, 30 yards short on the receiving yards. So he's a guy to watch during bowl season should he chase that record. And then the Alabama defense. This was kind of the head scratcher of the weekend. I can't pick a defense right, it seems. I picked Auburn 2 weeks ago. They lost to New Mexico State. So what do? I pick Alabama's defense to shut down Auburn, surely, right? Nope. They get taken to the ropes. Alabama did have more total yards in this one, so I did pick the right side of the script, but they did let up 337 yards. So when your quarterback gets held under 200 and your defense lets up over 300, usually you don't have a good week, and that was the case here. 68 total yards.
Definitely. Carson Beck only having 199. Jalen Wright not getting over 100. And then, Alabama defense. I mean, I thought that was going to be a lock for a defense to get, 250 or less. But nope. The Iron Bowl, man, I swear, it really treats you every single season. You could think it's a blowout. Auburn coming off of the loss against New Mexico State. And then, boom, put up 337 yards on Alabama. So 68 is your total. We'll see if it holds up as we now flip on over to how my team did in the final week of the regular season. You can see there, 223. So the 68 did not hold up. Jane Daniels, man, this is probably, one of the few picks. I think that if he plays in the bowl game, Wade, you're probably going to have to take him because I can't take him anymore to finish out his senior season. But 355 total yards, over 100 yards on the ground. He had 20. Then he had over 200 yards passing against Texas A&M. A Texas A&M defense that ranks in top 10 in pretty much every category that you look at. Quinshon Judkins, 124 yards, most of those coming on the ground. A good game for Judkins. He also had a touchdown. Jermaine Burton, I mean, I knew that it was going to be his game against Auburn defense, 107 yards and a touchdown as well. And once again, you thought the Georgia defense would do well, and here they are, 363. We just cannot get it right with these defenses so far. But nonetheless, I got to give credit to all my skill positions because it did not matter. As you can see, 355 from Daniels, 124 from Judkins, and 107 from Burton. So that was the difference makers. My skill positions, especially the quarterback, Daniels getting 355 was the barrier. So 223, like we mentioned, we're going to skip SEC fantasy draft this week, but I will have the first pick on next week's show when we look at all the bowl games, and that will be a lot of fun. Hopefully that will be the last time that we see that 68 score. Wade, I'm going to set you up. I think that you're going to get back on track, get you 300 plus during the bowl season.
I think so too.
As long as you pick the top two defenses. So as we mentioned, no SEC fantasy draft this week. So let's get right into the recap. And a recap is presented by our friends over at SeatGeek. I would say that there's a lot of sporting events with the college football season winding down. If you want to go to a conference championship game or go to a bowl game that's close to your hometown, or they also have the NBA games and all that. But if you're a first-time user, use code BellyUpSports for 20% off of your first purchase. Usually we start with the Saturday morning games, but we had a game on Thanksgiving with the Egg Bowl with Ole Miss in Mississippi State. You're absolutely crazy if you thought that this score was going to be 17-7, only 24 points combined. I mean, this was a 3-0 game going into the half. This was definitely unexpected, but nonetheless, both defenses rose to the occasion. Number 12, Ole Miss 17, Mississippi State 7. Ole Miss back-to-back years that they took the Egg Bowl back. Mississippi State, though, their term coach, probably one of the best entrances I have seen in quite some time. Rolling out the ATV. I mean, this team was definitely ready to roll. But like I mentioned, Mississippi State's defense definitely rose to the occasion. But really, Will Rogers, he scored that rushing touchdown from the 1-yard line. It was 7-3 at that point. And then what really changed was that targeting penalty. If Mississippi State didn't get that penalty, then Ole Miss would have to punt, and then the Bulldog offense would got back on the field. But that was really where it flipped. That was the drive that Quinshon Judkins got that touchdown, and they were able to tack on a field goal. Because whenever Ole Miss got a 10-point plus lead or more, Mississippi State just doesn't have the offense. So what are your overall takeaways on the season for Mississippi State and Ole Miss?
Well, I was proud of how Mississippi State finished out the season, fighting hard for their interim coach. And if the rumors are true, I really like their selection for head coach. I think it's good to get an offensive-minded coach back in there. Clearly, they need it. This was a very low-scoring game, but the defense played pretty well against Ole Miss. I don't think we've seen anybody shut down this Ole Miss offense besides, Georgia and Alabama. So kudos to the Bulldogs for Ole Miss. I don't know where this team goes. I mean, I think that they probably will end up in the New Year's Six discussion, them or Missouri. I'm still not sold on Jackson Dart, especially after this one, but he did battle his team to a victory. Quinshon Judkins was fantastic. It's a rivalry game. I think you can't look too far into it being a close one, but I definitely thought this Ole Miss offense was going to hum, a lot better than it did. But hey, I'm excited. Even with all this realignment, some things won't change, and we'll be watching this one for years to come.
Yeah, definitely one of the better rivalries, not only the SEC, but in college football. And there is some rumors surrounding Jackson Dart coming back. I'm sure that he is. But, what does that do for Walker Howard? Howard originally committed to LSU. He transferred into Ole Miss, and then you had Spencer transferring. Who knows what Sanders will do? I don't even know if he has any more years of eligibility. He played 3 to 4 years at Oklahoma State, so I'm not sure if he has any more of that COVID year time. But it might be a Jackson Dart team coming back, and you really look at it. You get Judkins back. You'll probably get Trey Harris back in that defense. They could play like this against Mississippi State. I think, really looking at their schedule, with Oklahoma and Texas joining in, I think that they pretty got a fair stick. Obviously, they get Georgia at home. That's not going to be a fair share. And then they get Oklahoma on the road. So we'll see. Ole Miss, they're definitely in the New Year's Six bowl game, but there might just be too many SEC teams. You already have Missouri. And if Alabama loses, Alabama will probably get plugged into Missouri, being ahead of them in the rankings that they were. I don't really see that change. This might be going on to the Citrus Bowl to probably face off against Iowa. So that would definitely be an interesting matchup for the Rebel offense. But we'll move on now to shift our gears to the only Friday game in the SEC. And this was a beatdown for the Border War. Number 9, Missouri at Arkansas, and the Arkansas AD might want to retract his statement on Sam Pittman being their guy.
Yeah.
But they're already locked in, though. I mean, all the coaching searches. You saw Michigan State hire Oregon State's head coach Jonathan Smith. That is a terrific A+ hire for them. I think that's them in East Lansing, even with the off the field issues going on. But Missouri, Cody Schrader. I mean, he's definitely one of the best running backs I've seen in quite some time. Over 200 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns. You had him last week in SEC Fantasy, so you couldn't have him this week, but I'm sure that you have him. Brady Cook really wasn't needing this one. Only 112 passing yards, was pretty much just hand it off to your guy, and Cody Schrader got it. So Missouri finished the season at 10-2. Arkansas, though, on the other hand, start off the season undefeated, and then have the so we're just going to do this for everybody. What were your overall thoughts for Missouri? I mean, I don't even think any of us had this team finishing 10-2.
No, not at all. I mean, I thought this team would be 7-5 at best, probably 6-6 or even below 500. Some of it was a lack of research on my part. I didn't give this team a bunch of attention going into the new season. If anything, I was excited about this new quarterback I kept hearing about that was going to replace Brady Cook, and Brady Cook turned in another top 3 quarterback season, alongside Carson Beck and Jaden Daniels. So just really was led from the quarterback down, and Cody Schrader at running back as well. Just one of the best all-around players in the conference. So I think that I'd really like to see this team get the New Year's Six nod. I am a little questionable on why Missouri is ranked ahead of Ole Miss based off some head-to-head results. Of course, Ole Miss did beat LSU, and they have the common loss to Georgia, but the Tigers did play Georgia a much closer game. So I get it, and I'd really would like to see them face off in the Orange Bowl or something against another Power 5 opponent.
Yeah, I've been looking at some predictions. They're either in the Orange Bowl against Louisville, or I think they're either against Tulane or against. So I think that would be one projection that I've seen as Missouri in the New Year's Six Bowl. So I don't want to say it's a lock yet, but as long as they're ahead, of an Ole Miss, and I think that even with Alabama, if they lose, or even if Alabama wins and still doesn't get into the college football playoff, I think there's probably at least going to be 2 SEC teams get into the New Year's Six.
Yeah, I think
especially
two in a playoff team.
Yeah, 2 in a playoff team for sure. So we'll see what bowl game goes to. We'll have that on next week's show whenever we get to the bowls. But before that, let's get now into the final Saturday regular season slate. Let's go on now to the 11 a.m. games. First off, Texas A&M at number 14, LSU. And every game that LSU has involved in, the winner has to get at least 40, it seems, because LSU's defense didn't play well in the first half. A&M's offense, they deferred to the second half, so their offense was able to score a touchdown at the end of the second quarter and then at the start of the third quarter. So they're 2 for 1 there, built their lead all the way up to 24-14. And then Jane Daniels in the offense really took over. You had Malik Neighbors score that touchdown. Kyron Lacey touchdown pretty much sealed it. Jane Daniels once again going to be in the Heisman discussion, moving up just depending on if Bo Nix can handle business against Washington this Friday night. So if LSU fans want Jane Daniels to win the Heisman, definitely what Bo Nix does, because that pretty much could decide it, because if Bo Nix probably wins against Washington, that could definitely clinch it for them. But you got to give credit also to this LSU defense in the second half. They were able to make some adjustments. LSU outscored A&M 28-6 in the second half. So LSU, I feel like that's been a common theme. They start off slow in the first half, especially against a defense like Texas A&M. But nonetheless, LSU finished the season 9-3. With preseason expectations, probably not the season that you hope, but still an opportunity to finish with 10 wins.
Yeah, I think that ultimately this LSU team exceeded expectations on offense. I don't think we saw that leap coming from Jaden Daniels. I thought it was more likely that we would see fans clamoring for the future. And Garrett Nussmeier, he shut everybody up and went out and had a Heisman-level season. And as far as this game's concerned, I think A&M is ready to get a few extra bowl practices with the guys that are coming back. And I don't know what the restrictions will be on letting the new coach be at practice or interact with the team, but any exposure he can get, I think it's going to be Mike Elko would be great. And for LSU, same kind of thing. You got a bunch of young guys. Of course, the core of this offense will be departing, probably the top 2 receivers and the quarterback, and, well, probably at least 2 of the 3 leading rushers. So I'd like to see LSU get some new guys in there as well. Let the seniors have their dues, but ideally, see a heavy dosage of the freshmen come bowl season. And score-wise in this one, I said 42-31, so I'm pretty proud of that pick. It was a missed PAT away from getting it.
Hey, you almost had it. But yeah, really the main storyline for Texas A&M coming into this game was Evan Stewart, their star wide receiver, did not make the trip. That might be a hot commodity on the transfer portal. There's always already some
Malik Neighbors did. Come on, buddy.
On him going to Alabama, so we'll see if he goes to the SEC, goes somewhere else. Max Johnson is also in the transfer portal, so former LSU quarterback. We'll see where he goes. I don't think it's going to be back to the SEC. It'll probably maybe he goes to Oregon, makes it, and we'll see Max Johnson the Heisman next season. But we'll definitely keep an eye out where Johnson heads next. Moving on to the next rivalry game in the SEC, and it was the battle for the Governor's Cup. Kentucky at number 10 Louisville, 38-31. This was an absolute back and forth battle. Kentucky in Louisville. Louisville and Jack was able to keep going, but their defense cannot stop Ray Davis in this offense. Kentucky, I'll say all 3 of us did not give Kentucky an absolute shot to win this game, but it's not like
I've given them a shot all season.
Yeah, I mean, we tried to give it to them. They start the season good, and then they lose like 5 out of the last 6 pretty much. But beating your rival is always good, and I know that Louisville wasn't going to get into the college football playoff. Probably spoils the momentum that they had going to the ACC championship game against Florida State. But you know what the stupid thing is about all this? The Orange Bowl already has a tie-in of the ACC. So no matter if Louisville wins or Louisville gets to go, which is why I hate the tie-ins in these bowl games. But Louisville will probably go on to the Orange Bowl to face off against one of these top 10 teams. Maybe we see Missouri face off, but Kentucky finishes their season at 7-5. They're keeping their head coach, Mark Stoops, after all the wild stuff that happened last night with Texas A&M Stoops. So definitely good for the program. Kentucky keeping Mark Stoops. And good for them. This definitely spoiled Louisville's season.
Yeah, kind of a double win there for Kentucky. I like Mark Stoops a lot, and I really like the fit at Kentucky. You can see what this team's capable of and what he's created. I didn't like the hire for Texas A&M, so I am glad to see that they seem to be going in a different direction. And I think if you're Kentucky fans, you give Mark Stoops a pass. I mean, no shame in interviewing or anything like that. He's coming back. You just beat a top 10 team that's your rival. So I think you just kind of go into bowl season. You're probably going to a Florida game now, maybe the Gator Bowl. So you just kind of go into the season, ride the momentum, probably looking at a new quarterback next year. So maybe get some young guys some reps. And then for Louisville, yeah, they're sitting in perfect condition because, like you said, if they win, they'll be in the Orange Bowl, no doubt. And if they lose, Florida State will make the playoff, and then they'll be the next best ACC team. So ACC is a big winner here too, because they're going to get at least both either a team in the playoff and a team in the year 6 or 2 teams in the year 6.
Oh yeah, Florida State's pretty much the last breath for the get into the playoff, but looking like Louisville, it's going to be an automatic clinch for the Orange Bowl tie.
Yeah.
So good for the Cards.
Miami.
Like you mentioned, Kentucky might be either in the Texas Bowl or going out to the Tax Slater Gator Bowl in Jacksonville. So we'll see what destination Kentucky is going to be on.
There is the Vegas Bowl too. I always forget about that one.
Well, yeah, that's true. The Vegas Bowl. We saw Florida and Oregon State in that great matchup last year. We'll see if Kentucky heads out west and gambles a little bit of money out there. So we'll see there. But moving on. Yeah, it might be. So we'll definitely keep an eye on that. Next one, the Iron Bowl. My, oh my. I mean, the kick six happened 10 years ago from the date. You had the prayer and Jordan Hare. Well, it was the prayer and Jordan Hare, but for Alabama, as number 8 Alabama escapes with a 27-24 victory. I just still can't believe what happened, honestly. It's been over 24 hours since the game, but let's go over it. I mean, this was a back and forth game. You know, Alabama was threatening to pull away in this one, but Auburn's defense really stepped up. With all, you know, the crap that we gave Auburn last week, losing to New Mexico State and a quarterback named Diego, you come back to this like Hugh Freeze. This is just like a Hugh Freeze typical game. Hugh Freeze could lose to Middle Tennessee one week, and then next week he can, you know, play close against Georgia and play close against Alabama. So this is a very
proves they were looking ahead a little bit and doing some scouting for Bama.
Yeah, so this is a very bipolar team. But Peyton Thorne, I mean, I'm not going to say he had a great game. He didn't even have over 100 passing yards. He really beat out the defense with his legs. They listened to us, Wade. We said to win this game that you have to hand the ball to Jarquez Hunter. Hunter had over 15-yard carries and 80 yards. But nonetheless, I really think that we just need to talk about the ending of this. What really flipped this game, whenever the score was 24-20, Coy Moore had that punt and he fumbled it. That's really what ultimately flipped this script.
Gave him the short field.
Yeah. If you did it, Auburn, all you had to do was hand it off to Jarquez. Like, here you go. Run the ball. We have 4 minutes left for the clock, and we are going to drain this and win this football game.
At least flip the field, you know?
Yeah, at least flip the
deep in their own territory, no momentum.
Yeah. Even if you get like 15 or 20 yards, you probably get to midfield, pin them deep, and you have to go 90-plus yards. Instead, you fumble the ball, and Alabama pretty much gets a gift. They drive, they get it for second and goal. The snap goes over Jalen Milroe's head, and goal, you had Jalen Milroe get that penalty. You know, he was trying to scramble, and then his foot went over the line of scrimmage. So that was a penalty, a loss of down then Alabama had to take a timeout to avoid the 10-second runoff. And boom, 4th and 31. And really, you messed up on this play call. You were really sacking and getting pressure. And what do? You're two guys. Like, are you kidding me? You don't just go away from what
triple
was
team the
working
tight
all
end
game and be like, oh, let me just go to prevent defense just because it's 4th and 31. You just knew a guy like Jalen Milroe. You can't give him that much time, especially the dual threat athlete and the capability that he has with his arm. You found Isaiah Bond in the left corner in the end zone. Touchdown Alabama. They win. Auburn fans probably didn't wake up today because they were still feeling the pain, or that was definitely the most painful loss for any football fan base I've seen in quite some time. So give me your thoughts on this insane ending.
Yeah, I mean, kudos to Alabama. They had to make a hell of a play, and they did.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was true or not. I thought it was a little too good to be true, but I saw a stat that said no college football team since 2021 had converted a 3rd down and 30 or a 4th down and 30 or longer. Not for a touchdown, just like converting the down. So that just kind of shows you how rare that kind of play is, whether that stat is 100% true or not. Just really a miracle of a play for Alabama. For Auburn, they just really didn't scheme it up defensively. They triple teamed, it looked like a tight end going across the middle that pulled a safety off of the other receiver that caught the touchdown. And then they had a spy on Jalen Milroe, which was a terrific idea the majority of the game, and they did a great job containing him. But in that situation, the quarterback doesn't hurt you with his legs. If he takes off and gets 20, 30 yards, like, it doesn't matter. As long as he doesn't cross that white goal line, let him run all day. I would have rather used that spy as a blitz and just get a little pressure on him. And even if Milroe sidesteps the blitz, it at least makes him have to respect it. I mean, he just sat back there and directed traffic until somebody got open, and that's what he did. So it just shows the difference in where these programs are at. Auburn, we know they have the talent, a new coach. They don't have the discipline or the rapport yet. Alabama, the talent's not what we're used to for Alabama, but these guys are really good and they're well coached, and that was the difference. 27-24.
Yeah, tough pill to swallow for Auburn, but
yeah,
I moved to 6-6. They'll await their bowl fate, and Alabama now has a date with Georgia.
The Birmingham Bowl against Troy.
Get a little, yeah, that would be an insane matchup. I'd probably bet my money on Troy in that one because who cares about playing in the Birmingham Bowl? But yeah, Alabama now shifts their gears to SEC championship and win that one, get a little bit of help. Crimson Tide might find their way back into the college football playoff. So we'll
I
see
hope
what
not. I hope
happens.
Georgia just beats them.
Yeah, well, there you go. So that's Wade's take.
But
So moving
I don't
on.
know. Who knows?
Moving on here to the SEC slate, Vanderbilt at number 21, Tennessee. Obviously, we're not going to spend too much time on it because look at the score. We already thought that this was going to happen, 48-24. Let's move on. Honestly, I mean,
Hey,
Tennessee.
Vanderbilt held in there
Yeah,
a
they
little
did,
bit.
but
AJ Swan did come back, which is interesting because
I'm not going to waste my breath on this. We talked too much about Vanderbilt this season. In Tennessee, they haven't really lived up to the expectations. But yeah, great win for Tennessee the season at 8-4. But like I mentioned, not the season that you definitely hope for the season. But now, number 5, Florida State at Florida. This was the battle of the backups. Florida, really got off to a great start. They went up 12, got a safety in the end zone, and then boom, Florida State like that. Trey Benson, 3 tutties. Didn't even need really Tate Rodemaker in this one. He made some timely throws. Yep, but Trey Benson started the show. Keon Coleman was, Florida's secondary really bogged him down. He had a couple of key punt returns that set Tate Rodemaker up in that offense. But man, Florida, it's the same old Florida that they've been all season. They start off strong, and then you get to the fourth quarter, and their offense can't do a thing. Kirk Herbstreit and Chris Fowler pointed out the same thing. They had 5 total offensive yards in the fourth quarter. If you want to win a football game,
I didn't see that.
You cannot be doing that. You cannot be going backwards if you want to pull off an upset like that. But Florida State, they just keep on winning even without Jordan Travis. You saw Jordan Travis. He was up in the suite. So definitely still prayers go out to him. But Florida State continues to move on. And Florida, yeah, I'm sure these Florida fans, you go 6-6 one year, you go 5 the next year. This might be, heading into next year, this might be it for Billy.
Yeah, I think he definitely falls in that category. Has to prove it if he wants to keep his job, especially when your rival is, doing so well. We saw this with South Carolina. We've seen this with Auburn. We've seen this with Georgia Tech. All those teams made coaching changes. So Billy Napier's got to pull it off, and this would have been a really big one towards his case.
Yep, so Florida State on to undefeated. They now turn their attention to Louisville. They win that one, probably in the college football playoff, but you never know. This committee loves to play their own games the way that they've been rolling. We will now continue on with our slate here in rivalry week. We have another rivalry, the clean old-fashioned 8, number 1 Georgia at Georgia Tech. This was definitely closer than I expected. Rivalry week, though, I feel like every rivalry game that you looked at, it's really close. Well, outside of Arizona State, probably. But Georgia gets the win here, 31-23. Georgia Tech, Haynes King definitely played his potential in this one. But Carson Beck and this offense just continue to roll. Beck, like we mentioned earlier in the show, wasn't like the Carson Beck game that he had in the past couple 300 yards. The 2 running backs really got involved. The defense gave up over 363 yards. Can't be doing that against Alabama. So definitely not the clean that Georgia's played, but nonetheless, a win's a win.
Yeah, a win's a win. And I think maybe this team was just kind of looking ahead to the potential game against Alabama. Of course, that game had ended right around the time this game kicked off. So word travels fast. Maybe this team was just kind of peeking ahead to the Georgia-Alabama game, overlooking their opponent here. Georgia Tech's been a team that's held a lot of close games. They held Louisville to a really close game in the opener. They pulled off upsets against UNC, played Clemson decent for a half. So I'm going to look at this one more as a fluke.
Yeah, I agree too. But Georgia now moving on to the SEC championship against Alabama. I think even with a win or a loss, they are probably in, but definitely feel better with a win and getting to the SEC championship and getting that 1 seed. They'll probably be playing in the Sugar Bowl, and a lot of Georgia fans will be heading to the Big Easy.
We'll see you on I-10.
Yeah, they're going to be heading on down east to I-10 or heading on over to MSY. But Wade, take it away with Clemson and South Carolina. What went wrong for the Gamecocks?
What went wrong was on the second play of the game. South Carolina gifted Clemson their only touchdown of the ball game. I couldn't believe it. Watching it live time, it was on a scoop and score fumble. I thought that it was a forward pass from Spencer Rattler to Xavier Leggett out of the backfield. It's kind of a trick play of sorts, but if you look, it was indeed about a yard backwards, and Clemson had the whereabouts to pick up the ball and score. And that really killed all the momentum South Carolina had, because let me tell you, that entrance of Sandstorm, it was rocking. The place was electric. South Carolina was aggressive to start. They opened the game with a 15 to 20 yard pass downfield to Leggett. And then on that second play, they just got too cute with it, didn't execute. And Clemson immediately jumped out to a 7-0 lead. South Carolina gets the ball back and throws an interception on the ensuing play. So right then and there, it looked like Clemson was going to go on just an absolute tear, win this game like 40-0. But the Gamecock defense really stepped up, had an answer for the Clemson passing game, and held the run game in check. But the offense just never showed up. They did tie it in the second quarter, but then got blanked in the second half. And that's just been more of the same for South Carolina against Clemson.
Yeah, very disappointed. Very disappointed.
They really struggled to score.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know about this team, but this is definitely going to be a proven year for Shane Beamer. I think that Billy Napier and Shane Beamer, it's pretty similar. South Carolina, you go 6-6 last year, and then this year you miss out on the bowl game. That's just unacceptable for South Carolina, and Gamecock fans aren't going to be putting up with that much longer. So 2024 in the offseason, I mean, this is going to be a proven year. If you miss out on the bowl game, they're going to kick you out of there and hire somebody else. So they might hire Jimmy Chadwell, honestly. They probably should have in the first place. But
looks like he's staying put for a year, so I could see that coming to fruition. That, Florida, Arkansas. I mean, there's going to be some open jobs.
Yeah, so we might be doing this again. We're talking about A&M, Mississippi State open next year. Might be Arkansas.
Year last year, right?
Might be Arkansas, Florida, South Carolina. Might be few more jobs opening up, but nonetheless, Clemson does get the victory there. They'll probably be going on, I don't know what bowl game, probably the mid-tier level bowl, maybe facing off against the SEC team. But, we'll know. We'll see where Dabo and the boys go season. But I believe that is it for the rivalry games. And yes, that is. Let's see how the boys did in the rivalry week pick'ems. Wade and I went 7-2. There's pretty much agreements on that. And then Chet 6-3. He picked up a game. I can't remember what game it was. I'm not sure. Oh yeah, that's right. He picked Clemson over us against South Carolina. Very smart. I think that we were too high on the Gamecocks this season. And then they just started an interception and a fumble, and Clemson takes it away. After that, I pretty much just turned it off because I knew that Clemson was going to win this one pretty handily. But like the Egg Bowl, it was a very sloppy game by both teams. But those are the Week 13 picks. Now let's move on to the Conference Championship Week, and that's presented by Fanatics. Fanatics probably will have a Cyber Monday deal, I would have to assume, so definitely check that out. And then if you want to, head on over to our link to support your Swarms and also support us. Not only Sports Scramble, SEC Talk, but also College Football Coast to Coast are 3 shows that we have here on the channel. All right, let's get into not only the SEC Championship, but there we go. We have the Conference USA
all conferences
Championship, baby. New Mexico State, we just talked about them coming off of that huge victory. Again, not only that, they beat Jacksonville State. Good news, James Madison State will be going to a bowl game.
Yes.
I am order restored. I'm sorry, South Carolina, but I'd rather you sit at home and watch James Madison and Jacksonville State go into the bowl season. So good for those 2 programs. They'll be able to get a few more bowl practices, and maybe hopefully they don't just pair them up. I hope that they face off against another Power 5 or a Group of 5 team. But nonetheless, New Mexico State, very good season for Jerry Kill in that offense, but not a great test here. They go on the road to a hot Liberty team, undefeated. They're ranked number 20 in the AP poll. We'll see if they sneak in there in the college football playoff poll. So you're going to go with the Flames or go with a little upset here? Go with the Aggies.
I'm going to go with a little bit of an upset. I'm going to go with the recency bias. We didn't give this team the respect when they played against Auburn, and sure enough, they beat them by 21. I think Liberty's had a really good year. They've continued that momentum under Chaldwell that they had with Hugh Freeze, but this team gave Liberty a lot of trouble when Hugh Freeze was there. So I don't know. I'm just going with history there and watching New Mexico State against Auburn. I mean, I just feel like this team's they got it in them.
Yeah, if you really have nothing else to watch on Friday before the Pac-12 championship, definitely watch this game. These are two of the best Group of 5 programs, but I am going to go for Liberty in this one. I think this is going to be a fantastic game. These are two of the best offenses in the Conference USA. But with Liberty being at home, I definitely want to see them finish off the season undefeated. So give me Liberty in a very close game. I think at Mexico State, obviously they're not scared of anybody. They go into a place like Jordan-Hare, they're not going to be scared to go into a place like Liberty. So give me the Flames to finish off the undefeated season. All right, we need a tiebreaker. Chet, who are you going with? You're going with
Flames.
The Liberty Flames. So, Wade, you're the lone New Mexico State Aggies. So, there's your opportunity to get on top of the leaderboard, and Mexico State can pull off that semi-upset there. So, that is the Conference USA Championship. Now, the big one. This is going to be our out-of-conference game of the week. This is the Pac-12 Championship, number 5 Oregon versus number 4 Washington. Pretty much your win and your in scenario for both of these teams. Oregon, we'll see where they are, whether they either jump Florida State or stay at that number 6 spot. And we'll see if Washington stays there or move up to the number 3 spot. It just really depends on where Ohio State slides in there. So Washington got the better of Oregon on a field goal by the Ducks earlier this season in Seattle. Do the Ducks get the upset victory and the revenge over Washington?
Yeah, this one's pretty simple. You win, you're in. You might even be the 3 seed, depending on how the rest of the weekend shakes out. I think Washington, at the time these two teams played, I think Washington was the better team. But I think Oregon really outplayed Washington in that ball game. It was a coaching error that, to me, lost Oregon that ball game, and nothing to do with what was on the field. Not a mistake by Bo Nix or anything like that. So we've seen them play a really close game, and honestly, I think it was a game Oregon should have won. I just think these two teams are way too close in talent and ability for this to be a sweep for Washington. I think Oregon pulls it off. They got a lot of momentum right now. Defense is clicking. Bo Nix is playing amongst the best. So I'm going to go with Oregon here, and I think they slide in as the 4 seed in the playoff.
Yeah, Oregon's definitely been one of the hottest teams in the country. I think that this is a team that you definitely don't want to face off again. So, yeah, like you mentioned, it's definitely tough to sweep you. The way that Washington was looking, they had that sluggish stretch, against Arizona State and against some of those bottom teams, against Stanford. They struggled, but ever since then, I know that they struggled against Washington State. I know Washington State's they finished 7, but I think that their record doesn't show how good of a football team that was. Cam Ward played a game. That defense definitely stingy. But this was a team that I picked to go to the playoff in the preseason, and I'm not going to cop out on that pick. Give me Washington to win this one. I really like the Ducks here. I think that this could go either way, but give me Nix. I think that everybody has forgotten about him, really push him to the side. I think that this is the game that he says, look, I'm still the quarterback that I received all the hype in the first half of the season. I think that this is a high-scoring game like it was. It's going to be very similar, come down to whoever the ball lasts. So give me the Huskies to move on, win the Pac-12, and move on to the college football playoff. Once again, we need a tiebreaker. Chet, who are you going to go with? You're going to go with me. So there we go. So you had New Mexico State, you had Oregon. So you could either be at the bottom of the leaderboard or the top of the leaderboard by the end of this week. But one Oregon and 2. yeah, Friday night. Friday alone, those 2 games might be the decider of that. So that is the Friday slate. Now let's shift our gears on to the Saturday slate, and this is the 11 a.m. game, the Big 12 Championship. Always the 11 a.m. game in Arlington, number 19 Oklahoma State versus number 7 Texas. Texas coming off of a spanking against Texas Tech. They absolutely blew out Texas Tech 57-7. Oklahoma State, on the other hand, had to come back from BYU, beat them in double overtime to clinch their spot in the Big 12 Championship. So are you going to roll with Ollie Gordon and the Pokes or go with Texas?
I think that Oklahoma State could make this one very interesting. I mean, this team was just inches away from maybe making the college football playoff a couple of years ago in the conference title game. So they want revenge. Of course, they want to send Texas packing with a loss here in the conference championship. I would like that too, just for, I don't know. I just think that would be only fair, but I think the Longhorns get it done. This is a motivated team. They have the big win against Alabama, and they've looked really good in their conference. Just like Oregon, they had a heartbreaker of a loss to a rival. We all thought they would maybe get to avenge that game directly in the conference championship, but they don't. But I think this is a team, if they win, they're probably in, given the circumstances of what's going around in college football. They just need to be big Louisville fans.
Yeah, this might be a win and you're in scenario for Texas and a little bit of help. They don't need too much help. Probably like one more team to fall, like you mentioned, either Florida State losing. Ain't going to be Michigan losing, I'll tell you that. Yeah, this is going to be a very good game. Ollie Gordon, definitely, if you haven't watched him, I mean, he just put up 190 yards and 5 touchdowns against BYU. So if Texas can't really stop Ollie Gordon, this is going to be a long game for that Longhorn defense. Texas, I feel like every game that they played outside of last week, of course, has been really close. I think this is going to be a game coming down to the fourth quarter. I know that I've been talking very high on Oklahoma State, but give me the Longhorns. I think that they get it done. They're last in the Big 12. I think that Texas, Quinn Ewers, I think that the offense, they're looking to find his rhythm. He's starting to get healthier, coming back from that injury. So I think that Texas wins, but it won't be very easy against Mike Gundy and Oklahoma State. Are we going to go with our first clean sweep here on the show? Yes, we are. All right, a lot of confidence on the Longhorns. We'll see if Texas can really say adios and go on with the trophy as they move on to the SEC next. So very excited for that one. We'll be talking about Texas and Oklahoma joining the conference in 2024. But with that, let's continue on with our conference championship. The MAC, baby. If you don't like the MAC, then get out of here. This is one of the best group of 5 conferences. Miami of Ohio. Nope, this is not Miami, the Hurricanes. Miami of Ohio, the Red Hawks, going up against number 23 Toledo in Ford Field. Hopefully both of these teams have better luck than the Lions did on Thanksgiving. But who you got between the Red Hawks and the Rockets?
Well, these are clearly the 2 top teams of the MAC. They had this thing clinched before the weekend. So we're looking at what the conference has to offer here. I'm going to go with Toledo. They've always been one of the best teams in the conference. They are ranked in the AP poll for the first time all season. Haven't watched them, but maybe for a quarter of action this season on a Tuesday. But I'm going to go with Toledo just because of the program success.
I'm going to go with Toledo. I never pick against Toledo. I think that Miami of Ohio has been having a very good season. Give me Toledo. They've been the kings of the MAC. I think that they continue to be the kings. So give me the Rockets. Chet alone, I think we're all picking Toledo because we're very familiar with them on NCAA 14. But I'll roll with the Rockets against Miami of Ohio. So poor old Miami ain't getting no love on this show. We're all rolling with the Rockets. Moving on now. This should be the Mountain West Championship. Crazy thing was this was a 3-way tie between Boise State, UNLV, and San Jose State, and they let computers decide who were the 2 teams, and the computers decided it was Boise State and UNLV. So Boise State, they're not playing on the blue turf. They have to go on the road to Vegas. UNLV, they're off of that overtime loss against San Jose State. Do they bounce back against the Broncos and become the champs of the Mountain West?
Yeah, I'm just shocked that Fresno State choked away in this conference. I mean, they were on a 15-game win streak dating back to last season. At one point, I think they were like 6-1, so they just really struggled down the stretch.
Air Force was the absolute disappointment for me.
That too, yeah, they were ranked as well. So, honestly, just kind of following this conference as a distant bystander, I would have thought it was going to be Fresno State and Air Force. So to see neither team here is quite surprising to me. Boise State, of course, is the best program of all time in this conference. You got the experience factor, but what the heck, UNLV, they're playing at home. A computer put them in here. They beat Vanderbilt. So I'm going to put up the Runnin' Rebs logo for the second time this season on the show. It worked for me the last time. I just don't think this Boise State team is the Boise State team that we're all reminiscing of. I think that they're kind of here, well, just kind of by chance.
Yeah, I don't see UNLV losing back-to-back, especially in Elite. Yes, they do play in Allegiant Stadium, home of the Raiders. So give me UNLV to win this one. They have a turnover slot machine. That is probably one of the best turnover celebrations that you can have. So give me the Runnin' Rebs. I think that they get it done. Chet, it's going to go with old Boise State. Not sure if he's watched the Boise State game this whole entire year, but you know what? He's going to go with Boise State. You know, Boise State was a childhood team for us growing up. They were dominant with Kellen Moore and all of them. But he's going to go with the Broncos. But if this was a blue field, I think that we would be all going with Boise State. But since it's not, we have two running red logos.
And I think this game's always in Las Vegas, right? This is just a coincidence
always,
that UNLV.
It's always the best team with the record. That's how I think most of the Group of Five works.
Okay.
So they moving on now.
Are the better team.
Yeah, that's true. But we will now move on to this is what we're called SEC Talk, and we're getting to the SEC Championship. Number 1, Georgia. Like Chet mentioned, you always got to switch it up. So he's going with the blue field, Boise State. All right, number 1, Georgia versus number 8, Alabama. This is our SEC Talk game of the week because this is our only SEC game of the week. Number 1, Georgia versus number 8, Alabama. We've seen this matchup quite some time, whether that be in Atlanta, whether that be in the national championship, college football playoff, you name it. So do you have taken and being the SEC champion?
Oh, wow. I mean, I think Alabama's kind of a team of destiny at this point. They got big wins over Ole Miss and LSU and Auburn down the stretch. So I wouldn't be surprised at all to see them go into Atlanta and knock off Georgia. But ultimately, in a season of chaos, I just think Georgia's the best team in the country. I'm not really paying much attention to the Georgia Tech game. I think that they just were caught off guard. It was Georgia Tech Super Bowl. That was just another step on the path for Georgia on their way to a three-peat. So I think they handle business here. But there's a decent chance by the time this one kicks off, Georgia knows that they're in regardless, because if Texas were to lose or some chaos were to happen in the out west or in the ACC, I mean, I think Georgia would clearly be the best one-loss team in a lot of those scenarios. So this one will probably mean more to Alabama. They definitely have to win, but I don't think Georgia lets it get down to decision-making. I think they take care of business.
No, Kirby Smart's going to go let's go for that 1 seed and get that pretty much
home field
advantage in the Sugar Bowl. So, yeah, getting that 1 seed to pick where you play. You either go to – you don't want to go to out in Pasadena. I know that Georgia fans, they're going to be loyal. They're going to travel there. It could be – the game could be in Alaska. Georgia fans are going to be there. But you don't
want to play Oregon in the Rose Bowl,
Yeah, that would definitely be a tough – even Washington, the West Coast teams don't want one of those teams. But, yeah, this is going to be a tough matchup. These are two evenly matched teams. These defenses probably the best that you're going to see in the SEC. And then, to the top quarterbacks too, it's different. Beck, he doesn't really beat you with his legs. He can, but he's definitely going to throw it to his receivers. And then Brock Bowers, one of the best college football players this season. And then Alabama, Jalen Milroe, we know what he could do. I mean, the play that he made on 4th and 31 was absolutely crazy. But I'm going to go with the Dogs. This is pretty much a home field environment in the ATL for Georgia. This is probably going to be a low-scoring game. I think that the defense this is going to be similar to the Iron Bowl score. It might even come down to that crazy play that we saw in the Iron Bowl. Someone's got to heave it up that we see. But I'm going to go with Georgia winning this one pretty closely. And we're all rolling with Georgia. That's a scary sight. But
hello, Alabama.
Yeah. So this is pretty much, you're welcome, Alabama fans. This is just but we're all rolling with the Dogs. It's hard not to. I mean, they've just been really dominant, even with the close wins against Georgia Tech and Auburn. I mean, that's the two similarities of these two teams. You go on the road, Jordan Hare, and both teams really escaped with a win. So we're Georgia as the SEC champion. But we will now move on. That is the SEC championship. We now have the American Athletic Championship. Number 25, SMU, they just ran over Navy. I mean, poor old Navy, they just didn't stand it. Go on the road to number 17, Tulane. Tulane locked up their championship spot, beating UTSA. So are you going to go with the Green Wave of going back-to-back?
Yeah, I am. I'm going to go with the home team here, Tulane. I think they get it done against SMU. SMU's offense is fantastic.
Oh, there's going to be points and points and more points.
Yeah, and look, there's a very legitimate situation where SMU comes in and absolutely boat races this team with the offense, but the Tulane defense has really been good. They even withstood Caleb Williams for quite some time last year with, a different team, but they got some playmakers, and I think they get it done at home here in New Orleans.
got some playmakers, and this is a team that wants to get back to the New Year's Six Bowl. If a win, they
Yeah.
clinch it up. If not, they're out of the race. So maybe you see a team like SMU or Liberty steal their spot. So
So
with
would James
Tulane,
Madison be eligible if
no,
they're
they're not.
now bowl eligible? Okay, they're not.
I don't think so. I think they're just have to go to one of those. But I'm going to go with Tulane. Got to go with them. They're playing in New Orleans. It's going to be a crazy environment. Going to go with Tulane. Yes, he was, but he does mention that he considered SMU. I think that's not a bad pick if you really look at how
No, I
SMU
think
has been rolling.
Yeah.
This is an offense that can put up points to anybody, even Tulane's defense. But yeah, I think that if you're looking for a bet this week, take the over in this one. There's going to be a lot of points. This game might get into the 40s the way the backs have really been rocking. But all rolling with the green wave in the Big Easy. Moving on to the next game in the conference championship, it is the battle in the Sun Belt. Sun Belt is my favorite group of conference. Sun Belt, Fun Belt, baby. App State should be James Madison, but the stupid rule that NCAA has in place is not allowing James Madison to participate, but the team that beat him gets to go Appalachian State, so I consider that. And Troy, they won the West pretty handily. They ran away from pretty much everybody else. The West division was down this year. So you're going to go with the upset specialist App State or go with the Trojans at home?
I'm going to go with Troy in protest. I mean, I can't let Appalachian State sneak into this game and take it. Troy's been one of the best teams in this conference. Hey, this conference has 12 teams going to a bowl game this year. That's quite a feat.
Yep.
So kudos to them, especially with, James Madison being the new kids on the block, and they make it to, let's just say they won the regular season championship, and they'll get to go to a bowl game nonetheless. They do have, I think this conference has a tie into the Boca Raton Bowl. I think that would be really nice if James Madison got to go down there and play. But yeah, I think Troy gets this done. I saw a Troy bumper sticker on the way back on my drive today, so I think it was a sign. I'm going to go with the Trojans.
Yep, I'm going to go with the Trojans as well. Yeah, I think that Troy's a team that's built on their defense. This is probably going to be a game that's probably going to be a low-scoring game. Troy's going to want to play their brand of football. App State's going to want to try and run it up on you. But I got to go with Troy. The winner of this game goes to the New Orleans Bowl. The New Orleans Bowl always has the Sun Belt Championship or the best record. It was South Alabama last year. Don't know how that happened. I know that South Alabama was 10-2, but they ended up losing to Troy. But the winner of this game might be going on down to the Big Easy to face off against Liberty or somebody like that, or even Mexico State. Chet's, you know what he's going to go with. He's going to go with pretty much the alma mater of upset specialists of the App State. So we'll see if App State can get it done. This wouldn't be the first time that they won the Sun Belt. They had those couple of years where they beat the Raging Cajuns. So we'll see if they can get back on the mountaintop in the Sun Belt. All right, moving on to the next game here. This is not going to spend too much time on this because this is not going to be much of a game. But number 2, Michigan at number 18, Iowa. How close will this game be? This is 23.5. Michigan's already favored.
Yeah, I think that you can finally take the over in this one on the account of Michigan. I don't know if there'll be a 23-point victory or not. I don't know how much fight Michigan will come out with. I could see them coming out and winning 42-0. I could see them coming out and winning 23-7. I mean, they're going to win this game. It's just a matter of how much and how motivated they're going to be. I think we all knew that we watched the best two teams play in the conference this past weekend. Ohio State, they're sitting at home. They have an outside chance at the playoff if a lot of chaos happens. For Iowa, it's looking like they'll be heading down to Tampa or Orlando at the end of the season.
Yeah, looking like Iowa's going to be going to one of the Florida games. I won't spend too much on time on this one. Michigan, they win. They go to the playoff. Let's move on. Chet going with Michigan. This is not going to be much of a game. Thank the Lord for Oregon, USC, UCLA. This will be the last time that we get to see somebody like face off against Michigan. Boring games of the week. Michigan will probably destroy them and move on to the playoff. And this will be our final game that we look at this week. It is the ACC Championship game, number 15, Louisville, number 4, Florida State. We talked about that Louisville would possibly make this game and be an upset. Are you still rolling with that, even with the loss against Kentucky?
Yes, even more of a reason for an upset. Oh, wait. I guess I picked Florida
Right, I
State.
put the wrong logo. That's my bad.
Look, I'll tell you both sides. I think Louisville wins this ball game because it's wacky. It's college football. They lost to Kentucky. Clearly, they were looking forward to this matchup, and they play spoiler to Florida State season. I mean, like you said, this team's probably going to the Orange Bowl either way. Florida State, they know it's on the line. They have playoff implications. Had Louisville only had one loss, you could make an argument for them to make the playoff, but they don't have that anymore. So they're just out there for pure chaos. I think they get it done. I just think Florida State was already looking kind of flat, and then they lose their only dynamic playmaker in Jordan Travis. And I just think that Louisville has kind of been a team that can be really hot or really cold and sneak by. And I think this is just one of their hot nights.
Well, if you're watching the show, just imagine that's a Cardinal on the screen and not a Seminole. But I'm going to go with Florida State in this one. I feel pretty confident in this pick. I was thinking about Louisville too, but laying an egg against Kentucky, I mean, giving up 38 points to Ray Davis. If you can't stop Ray Davis, you're not going to stop Trey Benson and these weapons.
That is a good point.
I think it is going to be close. I think Louisville makes this a game, but Florida State, they got a lot to play for. They want to win this game and make it to the playoffs for Jordan Travis. So this is a team that's motivated. So give me Florida State. I think that they win the ACC. Chet's going to go with Florida State. So, no, this is not a clean sweep, but it's a clean sweep in your eyeballs. But in reality, Wade's going to go, just put an L there or something.
I tried.
but moving on now to hot topics. Of course, this is the coaching carousel season, and we do have some new hires to talk about. Texas A&M hires Mike Elko. I wonder who said that a couple of weeks ago that Texas A&M was going to hire Mike Elko. I did. So I saw this one coming, but Wade, what are your thoughts on Mike Elko heading back to Texas A&M?
Yeah, I think this is a good hire. Like we talked about a little bit initially, it seemed like it was going to be Mark Stoops. Mark Stoops does have head coaching experience in the SEC, so that would check a box. Mike Elko doesn't, but he does have experience in the SEC as an assistant, and he had a really good year at Duke as the head guy. So I like it. Get some fresh blood in there from outside the conference, but a guy that's familiar with the program. Can't knock it. But the one below it there, Jeff Levy, I think this was a much better hire, or let's say a much more impactful hire. A&M already had Jimbo Fisher. I mean, you could say the guy fell off and wasn't coaching at the same level as he used to be, but Jimbo Fisher is arguably a better I don't know, just football brain than Mike Elko. I don't feel like you're like right off the bat upgrading. Like you don't know that you're upgrading. They didn't make a slam dunk hire. For Mississippi State, I can tell you with 1,000% certainty, Jeff Levy has a better football brain than Zach Arnett.
Like,
this team just infinitely upgraded themselves. So I really like this hire. I know there's some off the field gripes and concerns, but it's SEC football. There's always going to be that. And I think that was a good hire. Do you agree?
I agree. I mean, offense alone. I mean, did you just see what Oklahoma did to TCU? They put up 69 points. So I think, Jeff Levy's going to hit it hard in the transfer portal. We saw Will Rogers go in the transfer portal. We'll see if Levy
he might come back to play in that offense. He would fit well. They might bring in Dylan Gabriel for his final year of eligibility.
Yes. I think they have another guy. I think they have a guy behind Dylan Gabriel or a recruit that was going to Oklahoma. You might have some guys that were recruits to Oklahoma be like, whoa, hey, you're going to Mississippi State? Nope, we're going to Mississippi State.
And that's exactly the hire they needed, you know?
I've been looking all over Twitter. I feel like, Tulu Griffin, he, did the eye emojis. So it's looking like all these Mississippi State players already bought into Jeff Levy. We saw him at Ole Miss. He had success there with Lane Kiffin. So he has that relationship with Kiffin at that school up north that they like to talk about. And then he went on to Oklahoma, had success with that offense. So I think that, Mississippi State, they didn't really have that. They lost that identity with their offense, but they will have an identity moving forward. I think it'll be a couple of years. There's not going to be a team that, year one, they'll be like 10-2 or 9-3. But I think that the direction and future, Jeff Levy, like I mentioned, he's one of the young and best offensive minds in the country. So great hire for Mississippi State, great hire for Texas A&M and Mike Elko. Build a program at Duke. I mean, Duke, you could build a program like this at basketball, football. It takes quite some time. So Elko, really good job at Duke, but definitely an upgrade for him going back to Texas A&M. He was I believe, the defensive line or defensive coordinator for A&M a couple years ago whenever Sumlin was there. So he's back. there in his roots. We'll see. There's going to be a lot of roster turnover at Texas A&M. So Elko in year one, don't think there's going to be instant success, but a couple years down the road, look for A&M. I'm not going to say A&M is going to be a playoff team because especially with Oklahoma and Texas joining the conference, there's going to be a lot of people. I still think that there's still programs ahead of them. So there's definitely going to be some time to tell for A&M, but love the hire for Mississippi State. All right. Well, I had really nothing outside of that. The news, there's really no injuries to report out of that. So who won and lost the weekend in the SEC? We'll do this for the final time.
All right. I think the big winner of the weekend was Missouri, figuratively and literally. They destroyed Arkansas, so that was a big win, and they kept their head coach throughout all of this coaching carousel, outside of the conference, inside of the conference. Not once did we hear Eli Drinkwitz's name with seriousness to Texas A&M, which I think is terrific news for the conference and terrific news for Missouri. So I like that he'll be sticking around in Columbia, and I think they're the big winners. Who I think lost the weekend? I'm going to go with South Carolina. I think this team really could have turned the page and built some momentum and salvaged a really tough year with a win against Clemson. The defense played phenomenal. This defense looked horrible against Texas A&M and against Florida, against Tennessee, and they really stepped it up down the stretch. And your leader, Spencer Rattler, couldn't muster out a passing touchdown against Clemson, who got beat by Duke and by Syracuse and some of these other teams. So I think the Gamecocks were the losers of the weekend.
I agree. The winners of the weekend for me is Kentucky. Not only you get to spoil your rivalry, but you keep your head coach. You could have lost him to Texas A&M, but he's staying with you at Kentucky. Might be getting a raise. I know it wasn't the season that you expected at Kentucky, but I think it's definitely going to get better. I mean, Devin Leary, that was probably one of the bigger disappointments that we've seen all season. You really talked about the transfer quarterbacks. That was definitely a letdown for them. But Kentucky getting a huge win against Louisville. We'll see if they can, get a good bowl game too. Definitely that win helps you getting a top 10 win. Losers of the weekend, this is easy. Florida missing out on the bowl game. Just the second half was just very tough. Fourth quarter, you couldn't get anything on offense. I know that you had a backup quarterback. So did Florida State. They were still able to do it. But I just don't think that Billy Napier is the guy for them. I think that was a bad hire for them. I just think that program is just stuck in the drain while their rival Georgia is cruising on probably to their third straight national championship. So their fans aren't probably liking that, and they're stuck in the gutter out there sitting on their couches watching everybody else play in the bowl season. But with that, we haven't talked about the college football playoff pretty much all season on the show, but this is going to be our final college football playoff prediction, our only college football playoff prediction that we had on SEC Talk. So take it away of who's going to be the top four.
All right. So this should be interesting. We had some differences in opinion with the championship games. So, but I think we're going to be in alliance here at number one, Georgia. I think that they'll hold on to that number one ranking despite the close win against Georgia Tech, and we both have them beating Alabama. So I have Georgia at number one. At number two, I'm going to put Michigan. I realize they don't have too many big wins, but they do have the one big win now against Ohio State and another ranked win against Iowa. Yes, it's Iowa, but that'll help. So I got Michigan at number two. Number three, I'm going to slot in. I think I'll slot in Texas here just because of the ranked win over Alabama. And then number four, I'm going to go with Oregon slotting in with the Pac-12 champion.
Yeah, I agree with that. Pretty similar. I do have two different teams there. Number one, Georgia. Georgia will be the SEC representative. Undefeated. They really showed me really no doubt that they're the number one team in the country. Number two, Michigan. They'll take care of business this week in Indianapolis against Iowa. They'll be another undefeated team there. I think I have four undefeated teams here. Number three is going to be Washington, a team that I have stuck with in the preseason. I think that they handle their business in Vegas, and number four will be Florida State. I think that they take care of business. Injuries, I don't think that's really much of a difference in this one. I think that Florida State will finish undefeated, be your ACC champion. And Texas, I know that I picked them in the Big 12 championship, but I think they get the tough draw of being left out of the playoff. Yeah. So those are my top four. Those
Alabama
are Wade's top four. we'll see if we talk about it anymore on tomorrow's show. I'm sure that we will. We spent like 30 minutes on it last show, so I'm sure that we will. We have another comment rolling in. We'll see if Daniels will be playing in the bowl game. Do you see, reality that JD5 plays in the bowl game?
I don't think so, just because of how fast his name is climbing up the draft boards. I think that these other guys like Penix and Nix and even Quinn Ewers, they might be playing. JJ McCarthy might still be playing. He could get a good jump on things, but at the same time, I think he is a leader of this team. He is a senior. He clearly has a connection with Neighbors, so I wouldn't be surprised to see him stick around, maybe play like the first quarter or the half, get Neighbors the record, and then both of those guys check out. But I understand that from here on out, it's a professional business, so I wouldn't be disappointed either way. As a college football fan, I'd love to see him play. It sounds like Neighbors is going to play, but he could back off that as well.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely going to be some opt-outs, not only probably for LSU, but also all the other college football teams. Hopefully with this 12-team playoff, we see less of that, because if you're, for one of those top 12 teams, you're in there.
Yeah,
but I think that Daniels will play. I think that if Neighbors wants that record, like you said, after the game, I don't know if that was emotional talk, or there's still a month until that bowl game. So we'll definitely keep it on that. But we as fans definitely want to see JD5 one more time in the purple.
Hey, I'd love it if they would just give us the Vegas Bowl. Let's go out there, play next weekend. Fans would like it. These guys could play. They could, move on. And
you're probably looking at the ReliaQuest Bowl, probably either against Notre Dame or Wisconsin or somebody like that. I'm just saying, like, if you looked at the bowl projections, that's definitely been most of it is the ReliaQuest Bowl.
I think it will be 100%. I just think to get these guys to the best of both worlds, let them play, but let them move on.
Yeah. Well, maybe they play against Notre Dame. They'll see, like, hey, wait a minute, Brian Kelly, Notre Dame, let's play and show them who's boss. So you never know. That could be a storyline.
They're going to put Jay Bramblett in at quarterback since he never touched the field at punter.
Yeah, that's true. But, yep, we appreciate everybody tuning into this week's show, dropping the likes, the views, the comments on YouTube and both Facebook. We appreciate everyone. Next week, we will be recapping Champ Week. And then also we're only going to recap one game. We're not going to be recapping everything else. We're just going to focus on the SEC championship game, Georgia and Alabama. And then we will get right into the bowl season. We're going to be, picking all of the bowl games that the SEC is involved in. And then the week after that will be our annual award show. And then after that, it's just going to be chopped up into recapping the bowl slate. We're not going to have that just one big old bowl recap show.
We'll recap them as they go.
Yeah, we're going to recap them as they go. So we'll have, the first slot, and then we'll have the second slot, and then we'll have probably a show in between there. So we're not done yet. I know that the regular season is finished, but we're not done on SEC Talk. Like I mentioned, bowl season, the bowl preview will be next week, and then the award show will be after that. So we hope everyone.
I think we'll put the awards out there next week, right, for people to vote on.
Yeah, we'll put it out a week in advance. So whenever we get we'll do it next Sunday, put out the Twitter, roll it out there for a week, and then that way we get as many votes. And then
we can do Facebook comment votes too, just to get a good, true survey. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, definitely looking forward to those next couple of shows, and we will see y'all next Sunday. Have a good one.